It's really my privilege and my honor to introduce someone who I consider to be a mentor for me in the fatherhood space, and that is Juan Solis. Juan was born in East Los Angeles and relocated to the Inland Empire at the age of 4. He was raised in a fatherless home that consisted of exposure to traumatic adversities that no child should experience, from domestic violence to drug use. He later began to continue the cycle of addiction and criminal activities that ultimately led to him becoming a system involved father and losing his children for a brief moment. Through his recovery and spiritual walk, Juan has made a change for himself and has become an advocate for fathers in the community. Juan and his wife, Rachel Solis, were instrumental in piloting and developing the Parent Partner Program for San Bernardino County Children and Family Services in 2010. For years, Juan Solis has focused on assisting system-involved fathers to bounce back from life's challenges through mentorship, role modeling, and his work as a fatherhood advocate. Juan Solis is now the San Bernardino County Father Engagement Coordinator at Children's Network. He chairs the Inland Empire Father Involvement Coalition and has become a master trainer for the Nurturing Fathers program. Juan was selected as a 2019 Top 25 nominee for Man of the Year Award. This honor was granted to members of the community who have made a positive and lasting impact through their diligent work and acts of service by the Office of Assembly Member Eloise Gomez Reyes. Juan Solis holds his faith dear to his heart. He is a husband and father of 4 amazing children and guardian of 2 awesome nephews. Juan coaches soccer in his spare time, assisting and enriching children's lives through the world of sports. I introduce to you Juan Solis.
Man, that got me emotional. I never had anybody read it like that. I appreciate that that introduction, Mr. Marlin. Man, what else do I say, right? No, I'm just kidding. No, I appreciate the invite. I am completely honored and humbled to be here. And that last piece about winning that award, I'm not a big award winner. I was very uncomfortable even receiving that award. But a lot of my peers, a lot of my colleagues have encouraged me to be willing to accept such accolades and that it's I should consider it as an honor. So I have been able to be more comfortable, and some folks even twisted my arm to adding that to a bio whenever I get introduced, and I'm like, all right, fine, I'll include it. But as humble as possible, I appreciate it. My name is Juan Solis. As you have heard, I'm the Father Engagement Coordinator at Children's Network. I am father of 6 kids. And I'm just going to pull up my slide. Should already had it up. I'm sorry. So I want to make sure, can everybody hear me and can everybody see me? I just want to see on the question parts. Yes, give me some thumbs up. Right. Awesome. Great. So I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about my journey, a father's journey, right? I am a father engagement certified as well through National Fatherhood Initiative. Actually, I love the fact that there's actually a training where you can get really trained up on some of these tools and strategies on engaging fathers. We're not going to do the icebreaker here for the sake of time, but I am going to introduce you to my sweet family. So usually when I bust out these pictures, because when I do in-person presentations, I hear the crowd go, "Aw," right? So this is my wife, Rachel Solis. We've been together for 21 years, been married since 2007, February 3rd to be exact. Yes, I remember my anniversary. I'm never in a doghouse. Boom. This is my crew, my clan here, my tribe, right? I always tell people I got 20 kids, but it's still six kids right there. And don't mind you, my little daughter that's in the wheelchair, she's up and running now. She just had surgery on those ankles at that time. She's kicking everybody, so she's good. Don't feel bad for her because we don't, you know what I mean? She's my little trooper. She's a little person. She has a type of dwarfism called chondroplasia, and she's a rocket, and I love her for her energy. But yeah, 3 boys, 3 girls. My olders are girls and my youngers are boys. My youngest is the one standing next to my wife, Anthony. And yes, I had to. So notice how I didn't say nobody else's name, just Anthony, because he's the baby. He's the baby boy. Again, I don't like the fact that I can't hear, because I'm sure everybody's like, oh, right. You better be, otherwise we'll have to do this all over again. But this is what we do right here. I love this picture here. This is we're a soccer family. I coach soccer. At one point, I was actually coaching all of them, but now I'm just down to one. Everybody else kind of picked different sports, or my oldest is 21 now and is doing other things. She plays soccer on her spare time, but is focused on school and work. And then my middle daughter, who we just expect big things from because she's such a great athlete and scholar, straight A student, she's a golden child, right? She's gonna be my money maker, hopefully. Here, as you can see, this last picture here, we have only 5 kids there, because like I said, my oldest is 21, and this is a tradition that we have. I wish I could say it's my living room, but it's not. It's actually the Bass Pro Shop, one of these stores out here that we just. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bass Pro Shop, but it's a lot of fishing and hunting and all kinds of different stuff that they sell there, equipment, camping, and so on and so on. They have a restaurant. It's pretty cool. Anyways, it's kind of a tradition we've done for quite a few years now. We take pictures, and my oldest is like, I got things to do that day. Whatever. She moved out, so she thinks she's grown. But I love her. She's awesome. Okay, so really quick, as you can see, this is my fam. And I wish I can say that I was always like that, right? But as you heard from my bio, at one point, I lost him. And this was before my 3 boys came around, actually. At one point I lost all my 3 girls. My oldest was already living with grandma, because she's not my biological daughter, but I've been around since she was 2 years old. But I really wasn't really that father figure, as in my opinion, until, later on when I started getting my things straight. My youngest daughter, my middle daughter, was an infant, a toddler walking around when they were removed. And then my youngest baby, who was actually removed at the hospital, because my wife tested dirty and positive for meth. And then, we're in the middle of our addiction. And I want to stop right there, though, and I want to apologize ahead of time, because I will be a little bit here and there, but I'll bring it home at the end, I promise. But I want to pause there, because that's not where it started. I didn't wake up one day and say I want to be an alcoholic or a drug addict, right? I didn't wake up and say I'm going to be doing all these criminal activities and selling drugs, and and I didn't wake up one day and say that, this is going to be my life and I'm going to lose my kids on purpose. That's not how it happened. How it happened, and I always say I've been working in this field for over a decade, but I lived this field my whole life. So the same families that we're trying to reach out to and encourage now, that was a family. That was my family. My mom was a single parent of 2 knuckleheads. My oldest brother is 6 years older than me. And she tried her best, and you're going to be hearing a little bit of me, and it's not mom bashing, it's not dad bashing. So I want to let you know ahead of time, I love my mom, and the last 5 years of her life, because she died of cancer in 2014, but the last 5 years of her life was amazing. And we have an amazing mother-son relationship like no other. And she was my rock at those end years. She showed me how to hold on to your faith to the bitter end. Ooh, that's where you get emotional right there. However, it didn't start off that way. She had to get away from my dad. My dad was very abusive. One of the only memories I have of my father was when I was 2 years old. Don't ask me how I remember it, but those memories do click in our little young ones' minds. And one of my only memories of my father was him pounding on the front door. My mom was in the shower, and I heard her say, don't open the door, don't open the door. But it all happened so quick. I heard my dad at the doors. What I heard, I'm like, hey, it's dad. So I pushed a chair and I started unlocking. Remember those old school chains? I don't know if anybody still has that. If you do, please change it, because they're not that safe. But I pushed the chair to the door and I unlocked the chain at the very top. He pushes it open. I fall down. He picks me up, rubs my head, goes in the bathroom, and all you hear is fist to the flesh, over and over and over. Hear my mom yelling. So I go and I back off to a corner. And this is one of my things that I did when I was really nervous. And from time to time, I still kind of catch myself doing this when, either there's conflict or some folks are either arguing to the side, which has happened either at stores or something. Recently at a hospital, and it was an older gentleman talking in an aggressive manner to his wife, and this was an elder couple. And I'm like, dude, I need to do something. Like, that's not okay. But I felt myself like starting to, so yeah, that's the impact that DV has on our children, right? Um, Cops are so used to coming to our house that, we had nicknames for the cops. They had nicknames for us. They would bring us toys, and I guess it was a common thing. Mom got away from that situation, but went from one bad relationship to another. Drugs was really quickly introduced in our home. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table while they were wearing heroin, I think about 3, 4 years old. And so I used to think to myself, like, as I grew up, I'm like, man, what kind of people were these that they would actually weigh heroin in front of children? I mean, I would get shushed away after a while and hey, go to your room or something, or go to the living room, go watch TV. But really, like, what? I mean, there's like a code in the street, so you don't do that kind of stuff in front of kids. You just don't. These guys didn't live by that code, apparently. So yeah, so I mean, that was my upbringing. One bad situation after another, and so I didn't connect the dots until later on. I remember being 9 years old. We had moved away from LA. We were in a different spot. Starting over is what my mom, had in mind. But again, one bad relationship to another, and I remember my mom sending me upstairs into a for like a duplex apartment. And I went 2 downstairs, 2 upstairs, and she would send me with an envelope. Now her boyfriend at the time was kind of managing those apartments, so she would send me upstairs with an envelope. I used to think, oh, I must be collecting rent for her or whatever. Well, one day that tenant, I was very close friends with his son, and he was not home, or he was home. By the time I came back downstairs, because I was talking to my buddy, my mom had gone to the store, and so I just kept my envelope in my pocket. And my friend and I started talking. I was like, I wonder what's in this envelope. So I opened it. I learned a few tricks, and I breathed my hot breath on the envelope so I could open it without, messing up the seal. And 9 years old, okay. And what was in there was a little meth bag. And at that time, I kid you not, so many different thoughts and flashbacks came in my mind. And I'm like, man, we're living a lie. Like, I used to think we were an okay, upstanding family. Like, we weren't, that wasn't our scene. My brother was, already gangbanging and everything. I was like, that's not our scene. That's his scene. Like, he's doing that. Like, my mom doesn't like that. And I don't know about that yet. I'm only 9 years old. Well, at that time, at that moment, I remember I made a decision, and I said, okay, well, if this is the life we're going to live, then this is the life we're going to live. And I remember that at that moment, I felt that was a turnaround for me. Got involved in a lot of different things. I started selling, weed at 6th grade. So that's 11, 12 years old. By the time I was in junior high, I had pockets full of everything and anything. I had pockets full pretty much. And it was, looking back, as it's one of the scariest things, because I was a little guy. I was a late bloomer. I was really small. Not that I'm all tall now. I'm only 5'8", but I was pretty small, and thin. And I don't know how I survived that. At any point, somebody could easily, just rob me, and it never happened. Got held at gunpoint one time, but that was after as an adult. But every time I walked up and I was like, hey, what's up? What you guys need? And they would always look at me like, man, you're selling this? Like, what the heck? What's this kid doing? But I felt like I had to do my part, because at one point my mom had no boyfriends. It was just her, and she got into her addiction pretty bad. And so I had to make sure that I took her welfare money. I took the food stamps and made sure there was food in the fridge in junior high, high school, and made sure that, the bills were paid, because I got tired of my lights, me coming home and having to stress whether if I hit the light switch, if it's going to go on or not. And that was it. That was my upbringing. So, like I said, I made my mind up. If this is a life I'm going to have, then I'm going to be the best criminal I can be. Like, that's me. I'm just committed to this. And I say all this with my kids' pictures up, because I look at their ages. I just can't. Can't imagine these guys having to worry about hustling and making sure there's food on the table, bills are paid at this age. No child should have to do that, right? And so it happened, everything hit the fan, everything came to a head. And I remember always saying that I'm never going to be like my parents. I'm never going to be like my father. I'm going to be more than that. And there's times where my boys come up to me and say, I'll be just like you, I'll make you proud. Or my girls are like, you put a high standard, Dad. I'm going to make sure that, I get a husband just like that. And I tell them, no. My boys need to be better than their father. And girls, you look for somebody that's better than me, because there is better, right? We all have our faults, but we can't seek their. Part of my philosophy is learn to be content, but don't stay content. And so, I mean, long story short, we reunified with our children and we got things going. But where I realized where my calling was and what my purpose is. And I believe it was Mark Twain that said there's two most important days of your life: the day you were born and the day you realize why you were born. And so for me, it happened when we were leaving court and we're high-fiving. The family was happy. Yeah, we got our kids back. Everybody was proud of us. And as we're walking out the courtroom, I turn and I see nothing but brokenness in the lobby. And the ones that stood out to me the most were the dads that were sitting at the corner with no support and their heads buried in their hands. And so I'm like, okay, I just felt it, like this is what I got to do. I got to show my fellow men the way. I got to show like what worked for me. I got to share. I can't hold this to myself, right? And in any community, we talk about giving it back and not holding it on to, not keeping it for yourself. That's what, sobriety is. And that's what recovery is. So we got to give it back. And it's really a biblical principle as well, right? Sharing our testimony. There's power in testimony. And so I wanted to cry at my testimony in the rooftops and the mountaintops and everywhere I could, right? And that's pretty much where I started off on my journey. And I want to ask this question here, and you can please put it in the chat or in the Q&A. But are any of you aware of the fatherhood research that supports father involvement? Anybody said in maybe a father engagement training, or perhaps, I've heard some, like, don't count today because that don't count. Amazing presenters so far. Honestly, I feel like I'm little fishes compared to these guys, but it's good. And then, what is a negative characteristic you commonly hear about fathers? And then if you guys can share with me some of the things that the panelists can give me, some of the feedback that we're getting. Okay, go back to my presentation now. And so now I'm going to share quickly defining father involvement, right? So that's positive engagement and direct interaction with children, including caregiving and shared activities. Accessibility, fathers' availability to their children. And responsibility, participation in decision-making, ensuring that children are cared for, and providing resources for a child. Excuse me, an example, doctor's appointments, supplementing family income, or child support. Again, defining father involvement, and is defined as immense, positive, wide-ranging, and active participation in their children's lives. And then the benefits to children of positive father involvement. And I just love these little images that we have here. Is associated with positive social, emotional, and cognitive outcomes for children from infancy all the way to adolescence. some more quick stats, and I'm gonna jam through these for the sake of time. Dads, some of these I get a little upset, and that's just my personal opinion, so my apologies. But like, why do we have to spend money on research that says that dad's involvement during pregnancy positively influence health outcomes for mom and dad and baby? It's like, Eureka! We have a breakthrough in this research. Like, well, let's spend all this money. Let's put some of that funding towards real action. But that's just my apologies. That's just my personal opinion. But I appreciate the fact that we actually can say it because there's a source there and we've done research. So, hey, as you saw, I have 3 daughters. So every time I say I present, I always make sure that I go home and I love on my girls extra because, as you can see, daughters are less likely to engage in risky sexual behavior when they have a consistent contact and a sense of closeness with their dads. So I get super close and I love on them extra because I don't want them engaging in any sexual behavior, much less risky, right? And then my favorite slide is father involvement in schools is associated with the higher likelihood of a student getting mostly A's. So we can easily say that when a dad's involved in education, kids do better. But no, this research I love because it gets detailed, it gets specific, that students are getting mostly A's when dads are engaged. So what does that look like? What does that mean? It doesn't just mean dropping them off and picking them up, right? That means doing their work with them, doing some research, because I get it. If nowadays kids are doing stuff in 6th grade that we're probably doing in high school, it seems like, at least to me, because I'm like, man, what is this? But let's look it up together. And if I don't have the answers, I'm sure there's something on YouTube, and I've done that before where, hey, I get schooled, you know what I mean? So it's awesome. But with all this research, right, and highlighting the importance of father involvement, dads still think they're not important. Now, part of my background in children and family services, when I was working with my dads, that was all their feedbacks. Like, you know what, I'm better off without me being in the house. I'm better off, not being there, because there's nothing but problems or drama and all this and that. Like, they don't need me anyways. Like, no, your kids need you. You matter. You are important, not just to your kids, but to me and to society, to our communities. Because we see that when dads are involved, our communities have less crime rates, less poverty rates, because we're not the key. I'm not saying dads are the answer to everything, but it's a huge component in our families and our communities. Let's talk about quickly misconceptions about and myths about fathers. Some of you may have heard this. Fathers are dispensable. That one hurt. Fathers can't parent on their own. Really. Fathers can't nurture babies. And so on, and so on, and so on. See, these myths and misconceptions give a negative portrayal of fathers in books, movies, and television, and are both inaccurate and harmful. We're training our young boys and girls to see that men have little or no role in the family. Children will be abused if cared by a father. Really? No. Research shows that when fathers are involved, a child is less likely to be physically abused. Young fathers run from responsibility. Are you kidding me? No. Contrary to stereotype that unwed teenage fathers disappear at the first mention of pregnancy, we now know that fathers will become deeply involved when permitted. And that is the exclusion for the fathering and decision-making process that causes stress amongst our young men and, can push them away from not being involved. That's what we've learned, and that's what we've seen in our work. Another misconception, right? The misrepresentation that all Black fathers are absent. Now, although the share of Black children born to single mothers has more than tripled from about 24% in the 60s to nearly 70% in 2018, indicating that Black fathers are less likely to live in households with their children than fathers of other races. However, research does show that many Black fathers are deeply engaged with their children, and physical separation not always the same with lack of father involvement. When you look at system-involved, father-involved, or specifically in child welfare, the large percentage of Black fathers and fathers of color are absent. However, that doesn't mean that all Black fathers, right, are absent. Some of the barriers that we've seen. All right. Now, according to Supporting Father Involvement Program, we see many barriers fathers face, which include the ones created by themselves. Some of the personal barriers here is incarceration, mental health issues, substance abuse, culture values, not ready to be a parent. Some of the familial barriers, right? The family barriers trajectory can be shifted if we focus on the co-parenting piece within our organizations and include reaching out to moms and mom's family and educate them on the importance of father involvement. My oldest is 21. I was recently told that I'm going to be a grandfather. Still trying to get him used to that title. I think I prefer Pop Pop. Maybe Oompa, we'll figure it out. But Oompa Loompa, I don't think that's going to work either. But you know, her and her boyfriend ended up, like, right when she found out she was pregnant, we're going through some stuff. They moved in, bumped heads. They're trying to figure things out, but now they're separated. So it's one of those situations. Now, me being in this field, I'm totally telling my daughter, like, hey, he needs to be involved. You know, let him be part of this whole, this whole picture. Like, the early years are important. While you're pregnant, it's important. And he's being very supportive, and he's trying to, see what he can do. He went and bought groceries the other day, and they're gonna end up back together. We all know it, but everybody goes through their own thing. It's not my ideal situation. It wasn't done the way I pictured it would be done. But hey, you know what? It is what it is. I'm gonna support my daughter and my grandchild because that's the bigger picture and not my own personal beliefs, right? Now my other ones ain't gonna be doing that. No, I'm just kidding. Now, organizational barriers, right? Hours of operation. What times are we open? What times are we offering these services, right? Lack of male staff. Are we like, looking to hire male staff or even male volunteers? Lack of commitment to dads. The funding is always a huge thing. Resources. Some of our policies, is it even geared? Like, social service was never geared with the father in mind, right? It was mainly for mothers and children. The staffing and then mistrust of systems, and then system mistrust of fathers. Societal, here's some barriers from society, right? Lack of males in social service, so support for maternal gatekeeping, media messages that societal stereotypes that caring for children is women's work, at the deadbeat dad, cool little social media stuff that's going on, that deadbeat dad this, and one other one that I heard was Disneyland dad. Now, Disneyland is expensive, so I know that's going to go out the window, but I heard it was something like in the 70s or 80s. That was back then when that started. But what shapes our view, or what shapes your view of family? Is it your personal history, your own experience with your father or your spouse? Never fails. When I do my presentations, I have a professional always tell me either I wish my husband was here to hear this, I wish my father was here to hear this, right? I wish my brother or my uncle was here to hear this. Like, it never fails, right? So your own experiences, and I wonder how much is that rubbing off on the way you serve as dads, is what and that's kind of the conversations that we have. And we realize, some of our implicit bias plays a huge role in how we engage dads. Some of the media, right? What we see on television and the portrayal of the fatherhood role, as you can see some here with Mr. Al Bundy and Homer Simpson, negative messaging on social media about dads. But here's how we can change things. Here's how we can engage dads. You heard earlier about the father engagement in schools and how important it is for dads to be involved in their schools. Some of the things I like to focus on is obviously getting dads into schools. As I remember growing up, I never had anybody come to any of my school events, right? My promotion was one of the main ones that stick in my mind when it comes to memories, promoting, and then I look out in the crowd and there's nobody there for me. And so, we really want to encourage dads, to get involved. And so some schools hit me up sometimes. We have some Father's Toolbox videos that we can probably share later, or I'll send a link to. And through those Father's Toolbox videos, where we share tips for dads of how they can engage with their kids, activities they can do with their kids. Some schools caught wind of those videos and like, hey, can you come out and present? And I'm like, you know what? Yes, I can. And can you help us engage dads too? We're having issues. We're struggling with that. And so we look at their marketing, off the bat. Like, I remember my kids going to school, the flyers that came home, flowers, butterflies, it's pretty. And so appeasing to the mom's eye, mom, this is for you. You go check it out at school. Dads aren't welcome, right? At least that's the misconception. But we looked at their flyers and they came back with this, like, hey, Juan, like, check this out. It's a gender neutral flyer. What do you think? It looks nice. I'm like, this is awesome. And they even included a little father's welcome. And I guarantee, and it is guaranteed, that when you include that little box in there, father's welcome, hey, dads, come check this out, you're calling them in, right? I remember at our table, we have our monthly meetings, our fatherhood monthly meetings, and with professionals, our virtual engagement lounge, what I call it now. And it never fails where hasn't happened in a while, but it used to happen often where, we need to call dads out. Like, no, That's conflict. You call somebody out, you want to fight. You don't want to call the dads out. It's calling them back in. It's inviting them in, right? And so I guarantee you put this on any of your events that you have going on in your organization, at your schools, Father's Welcome. It's guaranteed to bring one, two dads here and there. This school reported back and said, before we never had any dad representation in any of our coffee with the principal, workshops, anything that we had going on in schools. Since we started this, the real look at our marketing, we have 3, 7, 10 dads attend our workshops, and they keep coming. They keep coming. Like, well, yeah, dads want to be involved. They just don't feel welcome. Don't realize that, the place at school, not all dads. There's some dads that are going to be there regardless. Like me, I'm going to be there no matter what. Even if I'm not invited, I'm going to show up. But donuts with dads, it's a great start. It's a great start. But what are you going to do when you have them there, right? How about educating them on how they can volunteer? A lot of dads don't even realize that they can volunteer. What's the process? Sometimes I had a few dads from my kids' school that would say, yeah, I wanted to volunteer to go to the field trip, but my background check didn't clear in time. It's like, yeah, you got to get that stuff done early. As soon as school starts, boom, my paperwork's already submitted. Let's go. So that way I'm cleared and I can volunteer as much as I can. Obviously not because of the pandemic. Well, here we go. All-Star Dads breakfast event. So here's what collaborations are important. Now I'm gonna get to that in a sec, but we hold our All-Star Dads breakfast every. Obviously the pandemic kind of threw a little curveball on us, but prior to the pandemic, we had our All-Star Dads breakfast event. It was geared towards child welfare dads, so dads that are in the system trying to get their kids back, trying to bring some camaraderie, connect them to other dads that are in the community. And just, we would have a Father of the Year award that we would give out. And it would be a dad that had just recently reunified with his children, and we just want to acknowledge his hard work and really support the fact that, hey, there's vendors here, there's resources. We want to connect you to the pipeline to success, right? If you're not working, here's some folks that can help you get working, go back to school, whatever it is. Our Father's Conference, our Fatherhood Conference event as well, is the same thing. And we would have our dads show up and making sure that we're connecting them to our vendors and resources that are really going to help, though. Part of my feedback that I used to get from my dads, I would hold a parenting class at the Day Reporting Center for Parolees, and they would tell me, "Hey, Mr. Juan, I appreciate the class. I appreciate I'm connecting with my kids on a bigger level. But when I leave here, and I appreciate the support, the support groups, so on and so on. But when I leave here, I still don't have a job. I still don't have health insurance. Like, what can you help me with my real life problems, right? Like, I'm cool with my kids now, but I still can't work. What's up?" And so we started looking at that, and we made sure that every time we hold any kind of event, or even just at our programs, or our partners programs, I always tell them, if you have a program and a dad has issues, you need to know what's out in the community. So working in silos, and I'll get to that in a minute, it's not a good thing, but that's what we're doing right now. We have our Fatherhood Summit as well going on every Wednesday from 6 to 7 for our dads, 10 to 12 for our professionals. But collaboration is key, and silos are detrimental, right? We have our Nurturing Fathers program, facilitator training, that we hold at least one time every fiscal year. I think we're going to have to start doing 2 times every fiscal year, because we're starting to see more and more interest in here. We want more and more fatherhood programs in our community. Some of the feedback I would get from my dads is that when I want to get engaged, I want to get involved in services, but when I look in the community, there's nothing specifically for me. And every time I go to an agency, it just seems like they're, it's all women, and, it's against dads. And of course we have that conversation, like, maybe that's a lot up here, right? Don't look at it that way. But I mean, that's just the interpretation that they have when they go into the agencies and they see flowers everywhere and moms engaging with kids and pictures on the walls, and no dad pictures, no dad pamphlets in their lobbies. Some of the things that we like to also highlight is, if a dad shows up in your lobby, is there something for him to read? Is there fatherhood literacy? So we provide those pamphlets to make sure they have that. But again, collaboration is key. Silos are detrimental. If you want to really engage dads, it has to be collectively done. We all got to be able to do this together. When we talk about the protective factors, right, we look at parental resilience. So parental resilience here is the ability to manage and bounce back from all types of challenges and that emerge in every family's life. It means finding ways to solve problems, building and sustaining trust, relationships, including relationship with your own child, and knowing how to seek help when necessary. And here is what we see, that when there's when we need to intervene. right? So when a father's parental resilience is strong, we see him, he's even tempered, looks for solutions to the problems. He's engaged, resourceful, right? With signs of distress, frequent frustration, anger outbursts, complaining, blaming. There's hopelessness, right? He has poor coping skills. The children seem anxious, emotional. There's parental conflict, so on and so on. Positive father's contributions. What does a dad contribute? His partnership, right? And sharing of responsibilities, mutual support, so on and so on. Father's challenges, he's overworked, financial stress, lack of resources. So what does a dad need to assist in his parental resilience? He needs social connections. He needs links to resources. He needs validation and encouragement. Hey, you're doing a good job. I have a dad that's calls me often. He's a close friend though. But he also calls me because he knows what I do, and he's like, "Hey man, I just want to knock this off, get knock this idea back and forth with you. And how should I respond? We're going through a divorce, yada yada." I always tell him like, "Dude, number one, you're doing a great job. You're a good dad. They need to hear that. We need to hear that. I need to hear that. So tell me that on the chat if I'm doing a good job or not." Strategies for partnership parenting, right? We look at social connections, and I'm going to make sure that you all get the slides because I'm going to get through this really quick and I'm almost done already. But making sure that you guys have a chance to go through this on your own as well. Regarding social connections, right? Friends, family members, neighbors, and community members, they all provide emotional support, help solve problems, offer parenting advice, and give concrete assistance to dads. Networks of support are essential to parents and also offer opportunities for people to give back, an important part of self-esteem as well as benefits from the community. So your fatherhood programs or just your programs, are they providing this for them? Is there a place that dads can connect with other dads? And that's something that we as a community can and should be able to offer and provide those safe space where dads can get together and connect, because it's important. But we see that when there's strong social connections or a strong protective factor in social connections, there's supportive family and friends around, involved in many activities. We see dads involved in many activities. Dads are easily converses with others, participates in child-centered events, and help available during times of crisis. And then you see the signs of distress, the positive father's contributions, the challenges, and then the needs. When we talk about the protective factor of concrete support in times of need, right? Again, strong signs of distress, positive father contributions, father's challenges, and then the father's needs. When they have a strong concrete support in times of needs, there's stable housing, adequate food and clothing, healthcare, childcare, financial services for emergencies. And there's signs of distress. Again, there's evictions, the debts, the lack of stable income. So what is that? What does a dad needs in that time? Maybe education. Obviously that's not the answer right off the bat, but that could be more long term. And can we help dads to get to that? Setting goals, right? Employment assistance. Are you connected? Is your agency connected to those that are out in the community that provide like the workforce development department? I don't know what that's called on your guys' in Texas, but out here it's WDD, the workforce development department, right? The county staff. But we also partner with our vocational training schools. We try to connect our dads to trades. Not everybody wants to go to college, which is fine, but you can pick up a trade. And sometimes it's even better to pick up a trade because some things, like for example, a lot of these essential during the pandemic. A lot of my guys were working still, man. These guys in construction, these guys in that were having these trades. Like, yeah, man. Even pool guys, they had their jobs were like booming because everybody was at home swimming, which is great, right? Financial literacy services. Man, I feel like I need that. That's for sure. Learning, and once you start making that money, how can you make sure that you save and put money away, college tuition for your kids and so on and so on. So when we talk about knowledge of parenting and child development, right, that's another protective factor. Again, when it's strong, it's appropriate expectations, appropriate interactions, interested and communicative. So I share all this to say that a lot of what we do here within the Inland Empire Father Involvement Coalition, we try to focus on the protective factors and how can we strengthen our dad's protective factors. Because we know that when our dads are connected or our families are connected to the resources in their communities, they're least likely to either end up in any type of system, or they're least likely to return to the system. And so in our father engagement trainings, we talk about um, how we need to slow down to pick things up. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second so I can see some of these pictures on from the panelists. Love those pictures, by the way. But when we look at not just the protective factors, but when we look at the resources, right? We always pull together, we work together to try to make sure that if I don't have the resources, I'll connect somebody else to this father. I'll connect the father to somebody else, but I don't just give them the number. It's important that we share our relationships with our dads. Don't just give them phone numbers. We need to be able to say, hey, this is Ms. Anita's number. She's gonna, there's her personal line. Make sure you connect with her. Tell her that we sent you. This is, explain the situation. Or I can call while the dad's there, or I have him on the line and say, you know what, let me make a call. Expect this dad's gonna call you. This is what's going on, so on and so on. It's important that we're able to provide that. And if you're program servicing fathers and families, how are you connecting those dads to that what we call the pipeline to success, right? At our father engagement training, we tell folks that we need to slow down to speed things up, because we always hear, yeah, we're a family servicing agency, we service dads too, right? And when we say we're a family servicing agency, we live in a fast-paced world, right? We've got deadlines, quotas, we got a meeting after this, I'm sure we got speakers coming up, I have to hurry up, right? And when we say we're a family servicing agency, we service mom, we service the kids, wash our hands, move on to the next family, right? And so we need to be able to slow down to speed things up, and connect the service the families holistically and as a whole. Another thing that I always share about our father engagement trainings is learning to disengage dads before we engage dads. So building that rapport. Don't just go off to your checking boxes and doing the assessments. Get to know dad first. That was what really worked for me with my social worker that was working with me during my time. She really focused a lot on building rapport. And just really quick, I'm about to finish up. I got 1 minute. So my social worker, it was a full turnaround. She ended up becoming my supervisor when I was working for CPS. The foster parents also, to this day, we're in constant contact with them. And we have this long-lasting relationship because they provided those awesome words of encouragement. They would say, hey, you guys can get your kids back. You guys will do it. Something that we've never heard from anybody, not even our own family members, words of encouragement, my wife and I. We grew up without that. And so we would look forward to the visits when we visit my daughter, and not just to see my daughter, but also to hear, like, what are they going to tell us next? Like, what kind of, positive encouragement are they going to tell us next? And that's what I want you all to understand, is that what your words matter. The dads that come into your offices realize that, they understand that, number one, it's intimidating. Number two, there's a power of the pen that we talk about. Okay, we know that everything that we're going to say, everything we're going to do is going to get written down or is going to get thrown in our face. And so again, learning to disengage dads before you engage dads. And this, remember us, that was my family. The message that I want you to walk away with today is that change is possible. Never count a dad out. Understand that change is possible. Our job is to make sure that we can connect them to the pipeline to success so they can get from where they were to where we know they can be. All right. Thank you very much.